In a quiet valley, far from the noise of cities and the rush of human footsteps, there stood an ancient oak tree. Its roots ran deep into the earth, and its branches reached high toward the sky, as if trying to touch the clouds. The tree had seen many seasons, winters of silence, springs of song, summers of laughter, and autumns of farewell. But among all the trees in the valley, this one was different. It listened. In the beginning, the oak was lonely. Birds built nests on other trees. Travelers passed by without stopping. Even the wind seemed to whisper to the flowers, not to it. One morning, a soft breeze danced through the valley. The oak sighed, "Why does no one speak to me?" The wind, curious, swirled around its trunk and asked, "Why do you want others to speak to you, old tree?" The oak replied, "Because I have so much to say, yet no one to listen." The wind laughed gently. "Maybe the world doesn't need you to speak," it said. "Maybe the world needs you to listen." The oak thought about it for a long time, and from that day onward, it stopped wishing to be heard, and started to listen. As the days passed, the oak began to hear things it had never noticed before. It heard the laughter of the leaves when the wind passed through them. It heard the sigh of the soil when rain touched its surface. It even heard the quiet footsteps of ants marching up its trunk. For the first time, the oak realized, the valley was never silent. It was alive with stories. Each morning, the wind brought new tales, of mountains that touched the heavens, of rivers that carried secrets, of meadows that bloomed in unseen places. And the oak listened to them all, storing them in its heart of rings and wood. One afternoon, a small sparrow landed on the oak's branch. Her feathers were dull, her wings trembling. "What troubles you, little one?" the oak asked softly. The sparrow looked up. "I lost my home," she said. "A storm blew my nest away. I have nowhere to rest." The oak stretched one of its branches gently forward. "You can stay here," it said. The sparrow wept with relief and rested upon the oak's branch. Days passed, and she sang again. Her song was gentle and full of gratitude. When the oak heard her melody, it felt something new, joy, born not from speaking, but from being there when someone needed to be heard. Seasons changed. One evening, a weary traveler arrived, his feet muddy and his eyes heavy with sorrow. He sat under the oak's shade and sighed deeply. The oak felt his sadness and rustled its leaves softly, as if saying, "Tell me." The traveler began to speak, to no one in particular, yet somehow to the tree itself. "I've failed," he said. "I've hurt those I love. I've lost my way." The oak said nothing. It only listened. For hours, the traveler poured out his heart, his mistakes, his regrets, his broken dreams. And when he was done, silence fell again. But this silence felt different, lighter, freer. The traveler stood up, looked at the sky, and whispered, "Thank you for listening." He didn't know if anyone had heard him, yet he felt heard. The oak's leaves trembled gently, shimmering in the fading light. Next spring, a tiny yellow flower bloomed at the base of the oak. It spoke shyly, "You're so tall and grand. I'm just a little thing. Does anyone ever notice me?" The oak smiled inwardly. "I notice you," it said. "I see your colors each morning. The bees adore your scent. The earth feeds you with care." The flower blushed. "No one ever told me that before." "Sometimes," the oak said, "you just need someone to remind you that you matter." The flower swayed happily in the breeze, and from then on, bloomed even brighter. One night, a terrible storm swept through the valley. Lightning split the sky. Thunder rolled like angry drums. The oak held firm, protecting the birds in its branches and the creatures that hid beneath its roots. When the storm finally passed, many trees had fallen. But the oak stood, scarred, yet strong. The sparrow chirped weakly, "You saved us." The oak replied, "I only did what any friend would do." And for the first time, the valley truly saw the oak, not as just another tree, but as a guardian. As years turned to decades, travelers often stopped beneath the great oak. Some came to rest. Some came to pray. Some came simply to think. And all of them left feeling lighter. The oak had become known as the listening tree. People said if you sat under it long enough, your heart would speak, and your pain would melt into peace. Even animals began to gather near it, drawn by the calm energy that surrounded it. The oak never spoke, but it had become a voice for many. One moonlit night, the wind returned, the same wind that had once told the oak to listen. "You've grown wise," the wind said. "Tell me, what have you learned after all these years?" The oak answered slowly, "I learned that everyone, from the smallest flower to the loneliest traveler, needs to be heard. I learned that words can heal, but silence can too. And I learned that by listening, I became part of every story that passed my way." The wind swirled gently through the leaves. "Then you have become what this valley needed most," it whispered, "a heart that listens." We often think wisdom comes from speaking, from sharing, from being known. But sometimes, the greatest wisdom lies in listening, deeply, without judgment, without hurry. Because when we listen, we don't just hear sounds. We hear souls. Listening is an act of love. In a world full of noise, be the one who hears, because every heart has a story waiting to be understood.